track of time here because I've been unemployed for the last month and the days just kind of blend together now. So I'm just going to talk about whatever today. I feel like, I've been in the NA program, Narcotics Anonymous, for 12 years now, and I've never given my story. I've never done an open talk. So I might do that today. I think I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm going to do an open talk and tell my story of how I overcame drug addiction and how I overcame nearly impossible odds. So, with that, I'll get started. So, basically, when I was young, I always had a lot of situations where I would get in trouble for things that weren't my fault, right? So, I had a babysitter back in the early 90s. We had just moved to Arlington Heights. It's by Chicago. And this babysitter of mine was pure evil. And I have one friend who lives in California now who can attest to that. She was pure evil, and she would always get us in trouble for things we didn't do. I'll give you a couple examples. So one time she threw toys at her retarded brother. He was like mentally retarded. And she started throwing toys at him, and she told her mom that I did it. And basically, my dad got there, and her mom told her what I supposedly had done. And I got my ass kicked going down one driveway and up the next. We lived right next door to them, and he took it upon himself to kick my ass all the way down the driveway and all the way back up again. And then from there, there was also another time I can remember where I said something, but she was with her friend, my babysitter, and she was like, "Did you hear him? He just said fuck." And I'm like, "No, I didn't." And she told my mom, and my mom washed my mouth out with soap. Okay, so I was like, that was a traumatic experience, right? Getting, blamed for things you didn't do. I think I was like 6 or 7 at the time. I was, still in my formative years, right? So that really had an impact on me and how I looked at the world around me. It learned me to view the world as kind of dangerous, and on top of that, my dad divorced my mom, which, these days I really don't blame him for. I just wish he'd open up and say, your mom was a bitch and I left her because I didn't want to have anything to do with her. And that would have been nice, that would have been the correct way to go. Just honesty. I appreciate honesty, and that's, sorry, I'm walking around here, so I'm kind of winded as I say this. Maybe I should sit down. But yeah, for whoever just joined me, I'm doing an open talk, and I'm doing my story of how I overcame drug addiction, and I'm starting from the beginning. So basically, I always used to get in trouble for things I didn't do and get punished for it. And then my dad left my mom when I was 6, and then my stepdad came into the picture around the time I was 13, and he was an ass right from the get-go, right off the jump. He would basically, like, it was like if you said the wrong thing, like just the slightest wrong thing that insulted him, you were getting your ass kicked. And there was a lot of violence in my house growing up. And that too shaped me into having a very angry sort of view at the world as a young man. I remember graduating from high school and consistently being angry at the world, right? And it kind of got me into, like, first I started smoking pot when I was 15. Then I started drinking when I was 16. Didn't really get into those things for a while, but those were the first times that I tried those specific drugs. And alcohol is a drug. If you're in the NA program, 100% alcohol is a drug, okay? Don't pretend it's not, because it comes with the withdrawals of a drug, it comes with the addiction of a drug, and it basically, for all points purposes, is a drug. So then after that, I started smoking when I was 17. I started smoking Grenadier cigars. I'll never forget it. This was back when I was still in Illinois, and I was living with my friend's mom, but there was this guy that hung out in our group, and he was nuts, and he would always start fights over little shit and would attack me, like physically attack me. And so to mitigate the stress of that, I started smoking Grenadier cigars. And because he thought that I was trying to steal his girlfriend from him, when in truth, the guy that I was living with was the one who was trying to steal his girlfriend. And then he found out about that. Suddenly he wants to be buddy-buddy with me. And I'm like, nah, man, I'm not having any of that. And I just kind of ignored all of them until finally the time came when it was time for me to choose whether or not I wanted to stay in Illinois or move to Michigan. And I decided to move to Michigan, obviously, because of everything that was going on at the time. Now, if I had known where Michigan would take me, I would have stayed in Illinois, regardless of what had been going on, because, I had friends out there. There were a lot of good times out there. And I even had a girlfriend at the time out there that I left behind when I came to Michigan. And so I finished up high school in Michigan. It wasn't bad at first. I met people, but I fell in with the wrong crowd. A friend of mine who I had met in my home economics class, his friend became my best friend. But then that guy's friend was a recovering heroin addict, and he had heroin addict friends that were still using. Okay. So first, they gave me mushrooms, which wasn't bad. It was a very enlightening experience. It was a full ego death, and I connected with the divine, and it was a beautiful experience. After that, however, they gave me coke, and that was a one-time thing, thank God. And then, but after that, they gave me heroin, and that was like the beginning of the end. And it was weird how it worked because a lot of people say, I started with pills and I graduated to heroin, but not me. I reverse graduated. I started with heroin and I went down to pills. And it was mainly because these fuckwads, I was hanging out with them for like the second time, I think, doing heroin with them or whatever. And they wanted me to drive them somewhere. And I didn't feel comfortable driving, but they basically like pressured me into doing it. And it was a very uncomfortable experience for me. And I'm like, I never want to see these fuckwads ever again after the day was over. So I stopped doing that. And then I went to my friend's house and I told him about my experiences with heroin. And he's like, no shit, dude. My mom just had this surgery and she's getting morphines and Vicodins and all sorts of shit. You want some? Oh boy. And that was another nail in the coffin right there. I was like 21 at the time, I think, or 20 or something like that. He gave me two morphine sulfates, 30 milligrams each. And after that, I was completely in love with the feeling, right? And I had it to a point for the first few years where I would only take them once a week. He then gave me Norcos, and I would take those once a week. I would alternate between the two. And then him and his other friend kept trying to give me methadone because his mom had methadone too. And I'm like, I'm not doing meth, dude. I don't want fucking meth, And they're like, it's not meth, dude. It's just called methadone. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't want it. But after like a good few months of convincing me, I finally bit the bullet. And I'm like, you know what? Sure, I'll try it. And that was another nail in the coffin because methadone, we took 10 milligrams each and we would be high for the rest of the day. But then we would wake up the next day and we would still be high and we would go out to get lunch and then it would finally wear off. So there were 3 different opioids that I was taking at the time. And again, it was only once a week. I tried to keep it there because I knew the addictive potential of them. And this went on for a good 3 years until finally I fell into the trap. There was this girl in my philosophy class, and she said she could get me a full bottle of 10 325 Norcos, a full 120 pill bottle. And I jumped on it. I took it. I'm like, these are going to last me for months and it's going to be great. They were gone within 3 weeks. And I had my first withdrawals ever. First withdrawals, and they were terrible. Nothing short of horrifying. And I was like, oh shit, and I kept trying to ask people around if they could get me anything, but nobody wanted to sell to me because they said, you're taking this way over the top. We don't want you to die or whatever. So we're not going to fuck with you no more. So I was basically on my own. And then a night of desperation came and I literally tried to rob a pharmacy and I almost went to prison for it for 15 years. That was the max sentence. But I got a really good lawyer because my aunt was on her deathbed and she used the money she was going to give me after she died to pay for this lawyer. His name was John Beeson. He's a great guy. And he got me off the hook with a month in jail, even though I had an incident when I was out on what is it, bond? Yeah, out on bond. And I crashed my car because I had just overdosed on heroin. And he got me off with a ticket instead of a misdemeanor. And then the judge finally, when I had to go, he was a hanging judge too, Judge Trusock of Grand Rapids. If any of you know him, he will send your ass to prison for life, and he will not have a second thought about it. He will not bat an eye, and he will just do that. And how are you doing, guys? I hope your day is going well. I am telling the story of my descent into drugs and drug addiction and how I got out of it. This is like my story. This is like an open talk scenario, kind of, where I'm discussing my life and how I got in and out of drugs, basically. So, but I got off with a month in jail because of my lawyer. My lawyer knew all the judges there for like 20 years, and he put in a good word for me. I had done everything else outside of that one thing where I crashed my car. I did everything I was supposed to. I went to all the IOP meetings, to NA meetings, and I checked myself into a rehab and all that. So I got off with a month in jail. It sucked, but it's a lot better than 15 years, let me tell you. And so I continued to have problems after that, though, because I found new drugs. I found, things like amphetamines. I found things like Xanax. I found other drugs like that. And I soon became a polyphasic drug addict where I wasn't just addicted to one thing, I was addicted to many things. However, I was put on Suboxone at the time, and it really saved my ass because at the very least, I wasn't looking for pain pills, right? And a lot of the drugs I had at the time were prescribed, like the Xanax, I had been prescribed by a psychiatrist. The Suboxone, I was prescribed. The amphetamines didn't really come around till later, but I was prescribed those too. And basically, this kind of carried on for like a good 6 years or so. And my life was in shambles, right? I was preparing to graduate college. I had just gotten my associate's degree going into business administration for a bachelor's, and that fell apart. And from the outside, it looked like my life was ruined. Well, I'm getting a phone call. I'm going to decline it for right now, just so I can finish this up. But yeah, so what happened though was I got my shit together for a good couple of years, right? Between 2017 and 2019, because I had a stable job with really cool people that I worked with, and that helped me a lot. But then when the pandemic rolled around, things kind of started to change again. I slipped back into the old ways. And before I knew it, I had switched over to methadone from the Suboxone. And there came a time in 2021 where I was on 120 milligrams of methadone a day, taking my amphetamine medication like it was candy, and running out half a month early and going through withdrawals for half a month, waiting for my refill to come back in. I was on Lyrica and I was on benzodiazepines, right? The thing is, though, like with the benzos, it was mainly the Xanax that was a problem. Whenever I was prescribed my Klonopin, and it was just Klonopin and Suboxone together, it actually really helped me a lot. But outside of that context, when it was like Xanax, the Xanax fucked me up worse than anything else. There's a big difference between Xanax and Klonopin. For those of you who know, you know. And basically what happened was I wound up overdosing on fentanyl in 2021, towards the end of 21 on my birthday. And I felt myself die. I felt myself leave my body. And I had a near-death experience where I remember specifically saying to myself as I was floating out of my body, oh shit, I'm dead. I did it. And I was kind of shocked. And I wound up in this field, right? It was like, if you ever played Majora's Mask, it's like the moon. You go into the moon and there's this big open field with a single solitary tree in the middle and blue, clear skies. And it looked almost exactly like that. And I was there for like a good 5 minutes or so. And I think my heart was being weighed, because then suddenly there was like a snap. And I wound up in this hellish void. I don't know if it was hell. I don't know if it was the void, but it was like this large empty space with millions of screams around me. And I literally tried to break free. I was like strapped to a cold metal plate, and I would try to break free, and it would pull me in 10 times harder than when I tried to break free. And I was stuck there. And the hellish part of it was I was stuck with all my regrets, all the mistakes I had made, and everything I had fucked up over the course of my life. And I was stuck there to sit with it and just think about it with nothing else to do. completely alone, completely isolated, completely separated from everything and everybody. And so I called out to my aunt, I called out to Jesus, and I called out to God. And I'm like, please help me. Please save me. If you give me another chance, I will come back and I will fix everything. And that second, there was like another snap. It's like it's not really a snap. It's like a fade in, fade out kind of thing where you just wind up somewhere else, but it goes as quickly as a snap. So I'll just say it's like a snap. And I woke up in my bed. My arms were on fire, my legs were on fire, and I went upstairs and I talked to my mom, and she's like, "Oh, good, I'm glad you're up. I had to hit you with the Narcan. I thought you might be dead." So make of that what you will, but I am completely convinced that I died that night and came back to life and was given a second chance. And from that point on, I dedicated my life to sobriety and towards chasing sobriety, right? And so the first thing I did was I worked on the amphetamines because at the time, like I said, I was on 120 milligrams of methadone, amphetamines that I was abusing, benzodiazepines that I wasn't abusing because they were Klonopin. Nevertheless, I wanted to taper down on them, and Lyrica. And it was at a point where I didn't know what I was in withdrawal from. I would wake up one day, and if I forgot to take something, I would go into withdrawal, and I didn't even know what the hell it was. So I'd have to take everything before knowing, what I was in withdrawal from, or just to make the withdrawals go away. Even sometimes I didn't even know. And that's a scary fucking feeling, man, when you're on enough things where you don't even know what the fuck you're in withdrawal from, right? So what I did was I focused on the amphetamines first, and I cold turkeyed them at the end of 2022, and I got off them. I was depressed for 3 months, and then one day I woke up and I felt great, and I said, you know what? That was the first time I had ever successfully come off of something, and I said, you know what? It actually does get better. So if I can make it through this, I can make it through anything. And then I started cracking away at the methadone, going down 5 milligrams, 5 milligrams, 5 milligrams every week until I was down to like 40 milligrams. And then I went down by 2 milligrams a week, two, till I was down to 30. And the nurse at the methadone clinic suggested I go down by 1 milligram a week from that point on. And I did. And I got down to like 10 milligrams. And then I jumped. And I had gotten off the methadone. I got out of the liquid handcuffs, which is very rare. If you've ever been locked in liquid handcuffs, it's a very difficult thing to escape. But that's the way you taper methadone. Go down by 5 milligrams a week. If you're still sick, wait 2 weeks and then keep going down. And then once you get to 40, you go down by 2 milligrams a week till you're down to 30. And then you go down by 1 very slowly until you get down to 0. And that's the way that's done. And yeah, so then I was off that. Then I tapered the benzos, which is actually benzos. The withdrawals suck on them, but they're very easy to taper off if you know what you're doing. So if you're above a mill, let's say you want a long acting benzo to do this, like Valium or Klonopin. I don't know anything about Valium, but for me, I chose Klonopin. And what I would do is for every milligram I was above 1, let's say anything above 1, I would go down by 0.5 a month every 30 days until I got to 1. Then I cut my 1 milligram tablet into quarters. I took off a quarter every month until I was down to 0.5. Then I switched to the 0.5 tablets, and then I would go down by a quarter again, right? So 0.5 to 0.375 to 0.25 to 0.125 to 0. And I got off them that way. No withdrawals, some withdrawals, but very minor, completely unnoticeable, honestly, for the most part. In that time, I also tapered off of antidepressants where I had brain zaps for a couple of weeks. I've been through that a couple times. And I was on like 10 different medications, not because I needed them, but because I was, I would be on one medication and the doctors would say you're having side effects from this medication. So we're going to put you on this medication to counter those side effects. And now, you're having side effects from this medication. We'll put you on this medication until eventually I'm on like almost a dozen medications. Right. And so it was a very difficult, very arduous process. I spent over a year in withdrawal, and where I was just like sweating bullets. I would go to the NA meetings like that, and I just kept going. I never gave up. And now I'm almost 3 years. Well, I am 3 years clean. I just got my 3 years clean, and I keep going. no matter what. That's my thing. I keep going and I don't ever give up no matter how hard life gets. Currently, I'm facing homelessness. I got laid off from my job and things have just been kind of falling apart lately, but I am still clean and I keep going no matter what. Because no matter, my dad told me, he gave me two good pieces of advice over the course of my life growing up. He said, one, take a shower, you'll feel better. Very true. Two, no matter how hard things get, keep going because they always get better. They always get better, and don't ever give up no matter what. So now I'm doing a lot better. I'm on two medications today, one of them being testosterone, which helps because like the being on all the drugs for so long really messed with my testosterone levels. So I need to keep that under constant maintenance. But outside of that, it's like I'm a lot better off now than I was before. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so unbelievably grateful for that, you guys. I've been in my car clean. I've had to sleep in my car for a week clean while going to work, and I still never gave up. And that's just the primary motto, just don't ever give up no matter what. If you're going through it, if you're going through the motions, don't ever go. What's good, bro? I'm from Germany. Welcome. Welcome to my chat. I'm giving an open talk on the story of my life and how I wound up in drug addiction and how I got out of it. So, yeah, I think that's it. I've been talking for a good 22 minutes now. I think that's a good amount of time for an open talk, but that's just the basic summary. There's a lot more to it than that, and I've had a lot more personal struggles over the years, in the in-betweens and everything. But the main crux of my recovery, the main foundation of my recovery is don't ever give up no matter what. It does get better. Oh, and I got off the Lyrica too, actually. I forgot to mention that. But I went down from being on 12 medications a day to being on 2 medications a day. And that's manageable. Okay, that's a lot more manageable than where I was at before. So there is hope, and you can do it. And with that, I think I'll end this live stream here. I just wanted to share this today, share my thoughts on this, because I've never done an NA open talk. Me and the people in this area in NA don't really get along that well. A lot of them, I don't know if it's jealousy. I don't want to say that because I don't want to come off as conceited. But as soon as I got a year clean, all these assholes just started coming out of the woodwork, trying to passive aggressively attack me and saying, well, you're messing this up. Oh, you're doing good in this, but it's like this. The backhanded compliments where they're like disguised to be compliments, but they're not. It's been like that. But I do have good friends in the NA program, people that would help me no matter what. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I'm still alive to this day because I should be dead after the overdoses, after the car accidents, after all the bullshit I've been through. Oh, and one more thing I did want to mention too, that pharmacy thing or whatever, that was a felony. I got that expunged in 2018, so it is no longer on my record. So, you can change and you can fix your life. You just have to put effort into it. It's like growing a garden, whatever effort you put into it is what you get out of it. Just keep going. And if you're in the NA program, my number one word of advice to you, 2 words of advice: pay attention to what people do. Don't pay attention to what they say, because people talk real good in there, but they're assholes and they'll talk good, but they don't have any substance behind what they're saying. And number 2, be careful who you associate with in there, because, we are recovering addicts, and there is a reason we are in there. So with that, I think I'll end it here. And I thank all of you who decide to stay to listen to my story. I really appreciate it. And I'll cut it here, and you guys have a great day, okay? Bye.